Thank you, friends. America today faces a choice between two futures. The Democrats have charted a course of reckless spending and a lot of government regulations, and the alternative is limited government and freedom. The 2012 election will determine which course we choose and also define the future for our children. America today is in an economic crisis in proportions. If you take a look at what governments do, they create these little machines that spend money. You can think of it as autopilot spending. Today, this year in America, our autopilot spending, which would include Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, S-chip, and interest on our debt, because that's something that we have to continue to spend. That autopilot spending is exactly equal or about equal to the revenue that comes in for our government. What that means is that everything that you and I have understood to be the typical functions of the federal government is being financed with debt. That says that if you want to balance the budget and you want to leave the autopilot spending in place, it means you would have no defense, not one Jeep, not one soldier or person left, and the rest of the government too would be shut down. There'd be no prisons or parks, there would be no FBI, no CIA, no departments of anything, no Congress, Senate, or White House. And that is a serious economic crisis. Then the problems become more personal and come home as a result of these policies. We see joblessness, which officially is supposed to be something about 9%, and yet we all know that that doesn't include the people who have given up hope in finding a job. We see gasoline at $4, and we see an endless stream of taxing and spending and debt, and the housing crisis continues onward and onward. I stand for the alternative, for the idea of limited government, the idea of creating an economy through the private sector that allows people to have jobs. I believe in the concepts established by our founders, that we don't need those large governments and all of those taxes and debts and spending. In fact, what we need to do is to develop American energy. We need to secure our borders, and we need to not only simplify our taxes, but reduce them as well. As a Missouri congressman, I've taken the principle and tough votes to stand behind those basic principles that our founders established. Sometimes the votes were taken in opposition to my own political party. But I have been at least a consistent conservative and have done that for a number of years. People might say that, well, Akin, you're too conservative, but in today's economic conditions, it may seem that what some thought was too conservative is probably just about the medicine that we need. The people of Missouri decided to reject Obamacare with a vote, 71% no. I voted no and spoke strenuously against it, and Claire McCaskill continued to support it this year. I also opposed all of the bailouts. There were a lot of different kinds of bailouts, even from cash to clunkers, and what we did with the different corporations that we bailed out of Wall Street, all of those things, regardless of party. I voted no on those things. In addition, there was that infamous stimulus bill, a stimulus bill that in a matter of a flash of a single vote, that we burned up the amount of money pretty close to the amount of all of the revenues that various states accumulate. It would be in excess of the amount of money if you took all of the supposed earmarks for the last 10 years and multiplied them by 10, all in one vote. Disappeared at $787 billion. And what do we get for it? Did we get the jobs that were promised? Most certainly not, and it was not money that we had to spend in the first place. The Declaration I was looking over, we remember some of the more famous parts, but the Declaration was, among other things, a list of complaints against the king. And one seemed to jump out at me, and I just wanted to share it with you here today. Talking about old King George, he said, "He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance." Does that sound a little bit familiar? You know, the founders believed that it was our duty to resist tyranny. The difficulty that we face should not be underestimated, but at the same time, we need to recognize the fact that our founders before us faced certain times of defining crisis. A particular situation where it seemed that history was hanging in the balance, just as we will face in 2012. I think of the Pilgrims, a little band, about 50 or so of them, huddled on the shore of New England, clinging to their dream against all hope, possibly, that would seem normal or rational. And then there was that tall General Washington on his knees in the snows at Valley Forge, taking on his shoulders and on the little farmers of our land the fight against the biggest military power in the world. And then there was the tall President Lincoln, a man of sorrows in his office in the middle of the Civil War. Each of those times were defining events in what America would be in the future. And just as they did, we need to cling to our dream, we need to trust God, and then we need to give it our all. And so now, I would conclude, as I began, that Missouri has a choice of two futures. And I'm determined to make sure that Missouri voters have an opportunity to exercise that choice. For that reason, I will be running for the U.S. Senate in the 2012 election. With the support of the Missouri voters, and by God's grace, we will chart a new course. A course of limited government, and a course of freedom. A course to return, the words that Abraham Lincoln penned, that this was an experiment dedicated to the proposition that all men could be free and prosperous and live the American dream in this great land. I have confidence in the state of Missouri. I have confidence in America. We're going to win this race, and we're going to return to a new course. God bless you all, and thank you so much. Might be appropriate, and I don't mind if you'd like to ask a question or two, we'd be willing to do that. We'd like a little bit of time for that, and then I believe there's a little 2-minute advertising, and so you have a time for a question.
Congressman, how do you feel about the immediate fiscal crisis facing Congress of whether to raise the debt ceiling? And looking farther beyond that, do you see any areas where we could cut spending?
Well, yes. First of all, the debt ceiling, you have to understand that's a law, and it was designed by some smart politicians to embarrass us into basically putting our nose into the fact that we are overspending, and that's what the purpose of that limit is. It's fairly short. It doesn't define, if you don't increase the debt ceiling, what's going to happen. A lot of that's left somewhat gray. And the facts of the matter are that if we did not raise the debt ceiling, at least for a period of time, there's plenty of revenue coming in. We can pay our treasury bills. There's not going to be any Armageddon or big crisis. The crisis occurs if we are unwilling to deal with the simple fact that we're spending way beyond our means. And that we have to do. So even from a political, but also from a common sense point of view, from the point of view of the people who hold our debt, in all of those regards, what must happen is we must figure a way that we can live within our means. And any increase in the debt ceiling, I think just for political purpose, we will have to have that included, or it just will not get the support that it needs to get through.
Congressman, you had said many times that you were going to make this decision after the redistricting issue was solved at the state capitol. That's done, and so here comes your decision. But I wondered, what role did how the district turned out play in your decision to run for Senate?
Well, they didn't do it right. I didn't get to represent all the people I wanted, so I had to run for Senate.
Other questions?
Joe?
What sort of budget do you think you're going to need for this? And is there a particular issue that you plan to focus again and again as far as McCaskill goes?
Well, I am guessing, and we haven't put the total budget together, but we're looking somewhere in that $15 to $20 million range, just judging by what previous races have been. That does seem like a pile of money, doesn't it? And in terms of issues, I was taught a long time ago when I worked for IBM that one of the things you do is advertise the benefits of your own product. In my opinion, the thing that I want to challenge Americans, and particularly the people in Missouri, to is the vision of what our country was founded on. The idea that you can come here and have the freedom to execute some crazy idea and either succeed or to fail. And that's always been part of America. There's always been that air of freedom, and it became such a common thing that on an individual basis that they called it the land of opportunity, or the American dream. And I think that reminding ourselves of what this country is all about is maybe the #1 thing that I'm going to be doing, Joe. And I think that will tend to dominate what you hear me talking about on this stuff.
Now, how will you differentiate yourself from Sarah Steelman, who also is a conservative?
Well, I think the main thing is that I'm going to be offering the people of Missouri a literal, exact opposite record than Claire McCaskill. We voted on the same bills and voted exactly differently, and we give people a very clear choice. It is, as I said, it is a choice of two futures for America, and I believe that people in Missouri will choose the choice of limited government, living within our means, developing American energy, and of course, freedom.
Congressman, did anyone discourage you from forcing a primary that could be divisive? And what are the challenges that you face running for the first time in a statewide race?
Well, of course, we don't choose to have divisive primaries, and so that's just one of those things. But we have a free country, and I wouldn't change a bit of it. And if somebody wants to run, then they've got the right to run, and that's okay. And each of us have to stand on our own record. I do think I have the advantage of a long record of standing for limited government and basically a conservative kind of approach to government, and that's sometimes been voting against my own party. I think the very first bill I ran into in 2001, it was called No Child Left Behind. It was H.R. 1. That means that's the president's or his wife's favorite thing. And I had campaigns saying that I didn't think we really needed the Department of Education to begin with at the federal level. This expanded it, put more money in, and I voted no on it. And so I've had an independent record, and I think that that's one of those things. You just have to stand on what you believe in your heart is the right thing to do. And in my case, that's been there's a long-standing record there, and I think that works out well in primaries as well, because people say, hey, this guy, we know where he is. You may not like it or not, but you at least know where he's going to come down. It's going to be conservative.
There are going to be people outside the St. Louis metro area who may not know who you are and may not really know why they should vote for you. How do you convince people in outstate Missouri to vote for you in the primary when there's another person, Sarah Stillman, who's run 3 times statewide?
Well, the process of getting elected to any political office, whether it's just your state rep or whatever, is, first of all, people have to get to know you. And so you just introduce yourself to people, and then they make the decisions. And so that's what we have to do in outstate Missouri. We have to get out there, we have to talk to people, meet with people, and talk about our record and what we have to offer as a product. And I anticipate that that'll go well. We've started some of that process already, met with a number of groups of people in other parts of the state, and there was a good sense of enthusiasm, and so we're very optimistic about the outcome.
So what about the issue of health care? How would you like to see that debate evolve here in this state?
Well, unfortunately, the Obamacare, which I call socialized medicine, has already been passed. And until we stop that, we really don't have too many choices of other things, because that's being forced down our throat by the federal government. But Missouri voters recognize that. That's why they voted 71%. No, we don't want the federal government running our health care. And so the very first step has to be to at least defund that bill or defang it, and if we get a chance, to repeal it entirely. The second thing that has to be done then is we have to take a look at our system. And our system, if you look at healthcare and it's sort of in a, the 30,000-foot view, you've got two halves to it. The first half is the care that we provide to American citizens, and a lot of other people come here as well. And the second one is, how do we pay for it? The care that is provided in America, I would suggest, most Americans would say, best you can get. You get sick, where do you want to be? Good old USA. The backside is broken, and that is, how do we pay for it? And so we have to work through that process. But we do have an awful lot of experience with free enterprise in America. And free enterprise suggests that you give people choices, and that they have to be part of that decision-making process, and that you don't just have the government run it all, because when they do, it gets terribly inefficient. So you give people choices between different companies or different policies or different ways to get their health insurance, and different choices. Do you want a generic drug, or do you want the non-generic? You're going to have to pay extra for the other, and people have to be able to make those choices. We have to get more of the marketplace back into healthcare. So that's a rough direction. First step, we got to stop the thing being shoved down our throat from on high. Yes. I think I'll take one more question.
Assuming
you get a second one?
Yeah.
Anybody got? All right. We're gonna. All right.
Assuming you make it to the general election with Senator McCaskill.
Yeah.
And assuming she's strong in Kansas City and she has a strong base too in the St. Louis area, how do you win this race? Is there a certain type of voter, a woman, or a certain demographic, or a certain geographic area? How do you win in the general election if your base clear?
Well, of course, what you do in this race is you give the people of Missouri the choice of those two futures. They can take a look at Kara McCaskill, and they can look at the fact that after the people of this state voted 71% against Obamacare, she continued to vote for it. They can take a good look at the fact that she supported the stimulus bill, which I see we have some state legislators here in the room. And if you think about that, you think about the budget that every state legislator has in every state in the country. You add all of the revenue that states collect to run their state governments, that stimulus bill took a huge bite out of that, probably pretty close to where all of the state budgets were. That's a lot of money. You can talk about earmarks, but you can add all earmarks together the last 10 years, then multiply it by a whole lot more money. Boom, one vote. So I think it's just on the record, sir.
Well, just follow, you're answering, philosophically, but I'm thinking geographically, where will the battle be won or lost in this race? Is it in outstate Missouri, in St. Louis, Kansas City? Where do you think it's going to be won or lost?
Well, the demographics are going to follow the same demographic patterns that they always do. Republican, Democrat between, and you're going to see the cities going one way, and you're going to see the suburban areas going another way. And then you've got all of rural Missouri, which they tend to be pretty conservative folks. And I believe that the heart of the people of Missouri is certainly well to the right of where President Obama and Claire McCaskill are. And that's why I believe this is winnable. There are other different sort of mechanical things. For instance, I've been a congressman in the St. Louis area now. This is my 11th year. And so we are known, have good name ID in the St. Louis media market. That's very, very expensive to buy. And unfortunately, we don't have to buy that multi-million-dollar media market. So that's a factor that goes into the equation, I believe. And the other different pieces, you can go on and try and game the race. I think it's just stand by your principles, sell good old American values, and full speed ahead.
Do you plan on endorsing someone for the 2nd district?
Do you know there's some really, really competent people who are taking a look at that race? And I don't want to have to do any dodging up here. It wouldn't be pretty if people start slinging shoes. So, but no, there are some really competent people. The 2nd District is a fantastic district. I would be surprised if there weren't a lot of people running in it, because it has been a pleasure to serve here. I love the people of the 2nd District. And it was a very thoughtful decision to decide to even leave the 2nd District, because I like it quite a lot. And I think other people will find it to be a great place to serve. The people have been very, very kind to me and given me the benefit of the doubt sometimes. And but you're going to be some very fine people running, but I'm not going to pick winners and losers.
Congressman, there's another person considering the Senate race, that's John Bruner. He's been a political supporter of yours. How would you describe your relationship with him?
Well, I think John Bruner's a fantastic guy, and I'm very thankful for his support in the past. I think he supported the right guy. Yeah.